A very good afternoon to all the students and a warm welcome to one and all present today for the online lecture of second year BCom semester 3 for the subject Business Administration. Now students, you have by far attended number of lectures in BA and you are very well aware that we have completed and discussed the first three chapters, that is to say number one, human resource management, number two, EHRM, and number three, human resource planning. In the previous lecture, we also discussed one of the case study pertaining to the topic of human resource and its management. So students, I thought that now before we move on to the second unit or the fourth chapter of BA, we should first be having a lecture particularly to revise all the concepts that we have discussed so far. So in case you have missed out any of the lecture, or you have still any doubts pertaining to any of the topic discussed so far, this lecture would be very beneficial to you, and by the end of the lecture you would have again got a quick revision about all the three chapters and all the topics therein that we have covered so far. So students, pay your keen attention for the lecture and thereby understand about all the topics we have discussed so far. Of course, I shall not be going much in detail because that we have already done in so many lectures by now. It would be a quick revision to brush up your knowledge about all the topics we have discussed so far. So let us begin, students, with the revision of first chapter, that is human resource management. We shall be revising all the topics that we have discussed in the chapter. So students, the first thing that we have discussed was the meaning of human resource. It was the first question with which we had started with the syllabus of BA. Human resource, I had very well explained you that it is the most invaluable asset of every business organization. You could have raw materials, you could have plant and machinery, you could have capital or any other asset. But all of them are of use only when you have a skilled and efficient human resource to utilize the same. So I had explained you that human resource comprises of each and every individual in the organization and the skills, knowledge, talent, aptitude, attitude, values that are possessed by them. It could be a lower level employee, it could be a middle level manager, it could be a top level executive as well. But all comprised together forms the human resource of an organization. Number two, we had discussed what do you mean by human resource management. So I very well explained you that human resource management was nothing but managing the human resource. When I say managing the human resource manager was paying attention to acquiring the human resources, maintaining them in the organization, developing their skills, and utilizing them in such a manner that the goals are achieved. But when I say goals, there were two different kind of goals that had to be achieved. One, the organizational goals, and two, even the personal goals of individual employee had to be achieved, had to be thought about. And that is why human resource management is considered to be a modern and a wider concept because it covers the skills of the employees to be developed as well. Moreover, considers the individual objectives of employee. Thereby, students, we had discussed the different characteristics of human resource management. That is to say, we discussed that it is a modern approach. It is wider because it covers number of activities which were not covered earlier. We know that it treats human beings to be a valuable asset, employee oriented, considers the welfare activities of an employee. It is proactive, so I had explained you that it will try to solve the problems even before it arises. It believes on the saying that prevention is better than cure. Right? So the precautions are taken well in advance and the problems are solved well before they actually appear. It considers the quality of work life, giving them the right conditions to work, believes in wholeness, that is to say, combining the objectives of both the organization as well as an employee. It is work done by every officer, not by a single specialist or expert. It is not only a paperwork, that is to say, it is not just record keeping, it is far than implementation. Primary objective is to achieve the goals of the company. Definitely, along with the personal goals of an employee, the primary aim shall be to achieve the organizational objectives. Thereby, students, we discussed a very important question, that is to say the difference between the personnel management and the human resource management. I explained you very clearly, but let me just give you a summary of the thin line of difference between HRM and personnel management. So when I say HRM, it covered acquiring the resources, maintaining them, developing their skills, and thereby achieving not only the goals of organization, but of the individual employee as well. On the other hand, when I talk about personnel management, we were not concerned with developing the skills of the employee, nor were we considered with the goals of an individual employee. It aimed at acquiring the human resources, having the necessary skill, and even if skills have to be developed, it would be only to achieve the organizational goals. And it was because of this reason that human resource management was concerned to be a modern philosophy, while personnel management is considered to be an old philosophy. Also, as I said, it is proactive and preventive in nature. It is basically curative in nature. It will cure the problems as and when they arise. Thereby, we discussed how, in case of human resource management, it was considering development of every employee, but here it is concerned with only the lower level employees. We studied about the objectives, thereby it is to be performed by all, but here it is performed by a specialist known as the personnel manager, not a paperwork, but it is more or less a record keeping job. And it would consider the quality of work life. Over here, as I said, productivity is concerned of utmost importance, but the quality of work life or the skills of employees, they all are considered subsidiary. So I hope that you have understood at least the crux and the basis of the difference between HRM and personnel management. Students, by now you also have the notes that have been provided to you in the Google Classroom for all the 3 chapters. You can even keep them handy. Have a notebook with you as well, so that in case you want to jot down something important, you can do that together. Students, I had explained you the meaning of personnel management, a very nice definition by Dr. George Terry we had done, that personnel management was only concerned with obtaining and maintaining the satisfactory and satisfied workforce. We were trying to engage only those human resources who were actually skilled in terms of their abilities and talents. Or even if the skills were developed, it was only to achieve the objective. It was not to develop the employees, or it was not to achieve the goals of an employee. And it was because of this reason that it is treated to be a narrow approach and old philosophy. We also discussed the different characteristics of personnel management. We can have a look at it once more. Students, thereby we discussed the different importance of human resource management. Some of the easy topics I am not going in again in detail, because these were quite self-explanatory, that if you have effective human resource management, it will definitely help you achieve the objectives, increase the efficiency, boosting the morale of the employees, maintaining the discipline, cordial relationships, developing team spirit. By training, you could develop the skills of employees, their self-esteem is satisfied, cost of production reduced, and thereby prestige also raised. A very important question we did was about the scope of human resource management. That is to say, the different functions that have to be covered under HRM, or the different functions that are performed by a human resource manager. So this would be something I would be talking about so that it gets revised once again. So human resource manager had to, number one, think about the recruitment and the selection of the employees. When I say recruitment, it was a scientific recruitment. I hope you remember, right person to be selected for the right post at the right time. So as a human resource manager, he had to work in recruiting the necessary people, selecting from the pool of applications received, and thereby those who are selected will be then appointed at the workplace. We also studied about number two, where he had to work for promotion, maybe demotion, transfer, and also termination of the employees. He had to maintain a record of all the employees who were promoted, demoted, transferred, or terminated due to some or the other reason. He had to work for the training of employees, giving them proper training and thereby developing their skills and abilities. He had to work in deciding the wages and other incentives. It could be based on the job analysis, that is to say, analyzing the job and thereby deciding the net worth of the job and decide the wage payment for the same. The service activities such as providing housing facilities, relaxation and recreation facilities, savings, investments, or even the medical facilities to the employees. Thereby, they had to work for collective bargaining and employees' representation. That is to say, if employees come up with some of the complaints, some of the grievances, they could be solved by negotiating with them, collective bargaining to be undertaken. Also, career planning had to be done about the employees to show them the career path, how they can achieve their career goals. So even that had to be initiated by a human resource manager. Again, development of personnel by giving them training, developing the quality of work life by giving them the right working conditions, and lastly, to develop a company culture, that is to say, frame out some rules, regulations, some ethics and values that an employee has to abide by while working in the organization. So, this was all for the scope of human resource management, an important answer even from the exam point of view. So, refer the notes, understand each and every point in detail. And the last topic for chapter number one that we had discussed was talent management. I very well explained you that in an organization, you need to manage the talent. We are living in a globally competitive environment where changes are taking place at a very fast speed. An organization to survive in this competition has to pay attention to attracting the best talent possible from the outside world. Not only that, even those who are already working in the organization, they have to be trained so that their skills and talents gets developed. So basically, you had to attract, that is to say, attracting people from outside. You had to develop, that is to say, developing the talents of those who are already working in the organization and thereby retaining them. There should not be a brain drain, there should not be a loss of employees from your organization. You need to maintain them so that the current and the future goals could be achieved. Because as I said, we live in a changing and a complex business environment. So students, this was all what we had discussed for talent management, that is to say which all activities were to be coordinated and integrated when you are having a talent management approach. So I hope that you got a quick revision for the first chapter that you have understood. That is to say, we understood again the meaning of human resource. We understood what HRM stands for. We understood the difference between HRM and personnel management. We understood the scope, the importance of human resource management, and thereby I also gave you a glimpse on talent management. Students, now we move on with the revision of the second chapter that we have done. If you remember, the second chapter also had the words HRM, but we had talked about a particular alphabet that was introduced, that was E. It was all about EHRM, that is to say, I hope you remember, stands for Electronic Human Resource Management. I hope you remember that we had discussed the definition of Electronic Human Resource Management. I explained you the characteristics, and out of all the different EHR activities, we had to discuss three of them in detail, that is to say e-recruitment and its guidelines, e-selection and its procedure, and lastly e-training and its benefits and limitations. So students, I hope that you remember the meaning of EHRM. I also told you that it was combination of two things basically. It was first human resource management that you already understood in the previous chapter, but with that is combined a letter E that stands for electronic. So when I say that human resource management practices when done electronically, that is to say when it will be done with the help of internet and the other related technologies, it is nothing but EHRM. Basically, you are making the HRM web based. You are making use of the IT tools, you make use of internet and the other technologies, you make use of the web-based softwares and thereby undertake the human resource management functions or activities. So we had discussed the definition also. We discussed the different characteristics of EHRM. Number one was the basic one, that it is a web-based human resource management. You make use of the web-based technologies, internet is used, the softwares are used to make the activities electronic. It was different from HRIS. So students, do you remember the full form of HRIS? It was your human resource information system. It was basically a system for collecting, storing, maintaining, and recollecting the data about the human resources in an organization. So definitely EHRM was different from HRIS. It was quite innovative as compared to a normal human resource management because it was made with the help of the information technology, internet. So definitely it was innovative, much more scientific because it results to reduced time, energy, and money and more effectiveness as compared to human resource management. Helps you procure the personnel with the necessary skills, ability, and the intelligence. Number six, complete integration of HR systems. As I said, every HR activity was to be integrated, but now done with the help of internet and technology. And lastly, it is quite flexible as compared to the traditional human resource management functions. It could be modified very easily. There was a scope for flexibility better than HRM. So I hope that you understood the characteristics once again. Students, thereby we had discussed the EHR activities. So I had shown you a list of different HR activities now performed electronically and thereby known as the EHR activities. Could be staffing, recruitment, selection, learning, training, performance appraisal, and compensation. But if you see everywhere the letter E is added as a prefix, that is nothing but electronic. Out of all the EHR activities, we had to pay attention to e-recruitment, then e-selection, and lastly e-training. So students, do you remember the meaning of e-recruitment? E-recruitment basically stood for electronic recruitment, or I can say online recruitment. Whatever recruitment used to take place earlier by the human resource managers now when takes place electronically or by the online means and method became your e-recruitment. When I say e-recruitment, we were inviting the people, we were inviting the applications, but not manually, electronically. So it was the e-process of searching for the prospective employees and stimulating them to apply for jobs in the organization. You search for the prospective employees who would likely be a part of your organization, and you also inspire them to apply, but it is done electronically, not manually. So the pool of applications could be received online by adding recruitment to your own website. You could also make use of some special recruitment websites. So we had talked about LinkedIn, Naukri.com, Monster.com over here. It could be developing some interactive tools. It could be using software for online recruitment and screening of applications. Basically, the recruitment done earlier now when become through online modes and means becomes your e-recruitment. We had also understood with the different benefits, but the most important ones were that through e-recruitment, the reach gets wider. You could receive pool of applications worldwide and also helps you reduce the cost, time, and the energy. We studied about the different guidelines regarding e-recruitment as to how should be e-recruitment. So very quickly we'll go through them once again, that your online recruitment has to be in accordance with the strategic goals. That is to say, the goals of the organization by end has to be achieved even through e-recruitment. You should be able to identify people with the required skills who could help you achieve the goals. Developing the organizational image, that is to say, employ such people who would help you develop a good image of the organization, a good reputation, because again it would help you in e-recruitment. Easily accessible, the recruitment that has been added in the organization's website should be easy to operate and access, should be easily understandable by those who want to apply for that job. You should also develop an online screening system, because by developing an online screening system you could shortlist the candidates out of the pool of applications that you have received, should be providing the relevant information about the job, about the company, organization as a whole. One should know what skills are expected from them while applying in the job. Also should use website to promote the values about the organization, collect feedback from the people, use appropriate language that is not clumsy or ambiguous, should not be confusing, should be simple also, should not cause any kind of confusion or anxiety in the minds of applicants, meeting all the legal requirements, free from bias, that is to say, should attract all the job seekers from all the sections of society, protecting their secrecy and privacy. Lastly, should also be secured. Thereby, students, you studied about the second EHR activity, that was e-selection. A difference between e-recruitment and e-selection could be that under recruitment, you have received the applications. You have received the pool of applications that candidates wish to apply in the job. But out of them, when you would be selecting the best candidate possessing the necessary skills, it would be nothing but selection. But again, if it is done electronically with the use of internet and technology, it becomes e-selection. So you are doing electronic hiring of the best candidate from the pool of e-applications received. We had discussed about the scientific procedure, and very importantly, you have to understand the different stages of e-selection. So we had studied that first of all, we had to plan for e-selection. That is to say, we had to first of all add a recruitment page on the company's website, which would be showing all the necessary details about the organization, about the job specifications, about the skills that are required from the people. After that, the people who are visiting the website, who are visiting the recruitment page, would thereby upload their resumes in case they are interested for the job. Then we would undertake online screening. I hope you remember we had undertaken a word, namely the KWS, that is the keyword search. You may have received thousands of applications, but only few of which apply to the requirement of the job. So by making a keyword search, you could shortlist out of all the candidates only those who are more applicable and qualified for the job. After having screened the application, you would undertake the testing of those who have surpassed the screening test. So they would be given a test. The test would be conducted online itself by a test administrator. Thereafter, those who have passed the test would now be called on to appear for interview, but because it is EHR, we are going to do an online interview, could be by a video conference or could be by a video call. An online interview will be conducted. Those who even pass the interview would now be given the e-offer letter, And if they are accepting that e-offer letter, if they are accepting all the terms and conditions mentioned therein, they would be giving a reply to the company. And lastly, they would be given the e-appointment letter and thereafter placed at the job. So we had discussed about the different stages of e-selection as well. I hope you understood well again. And students, the last topic for second chapter, we had understood the third HR activity, EHR activity, that stands for e-training. We have very well discussed how much training is important for an employee. You need to give them training so that their skills, their capabilities are developed. And when the same training is given to them by electronic means and modes, online means, it becomes e-training, where employees don't have to leave the premises, they don't have to leave the job or the organization, and don't have to go outside to obtain the training. We had discussed the definition, that is to say, increasing the knowledge and skill of employee, but by using the web-based program. We had discussed what were the traditional methods of training and now how the training can be given through the e-learning modes. We discussed the different advantages that were quite simple to understand. That is to say, when it is e-training, definitely you could make access to the experts' advice very easily. It was quite easy. It saves your time, cost, energy, money. Quite flexible. In-house training becomes possible, could be made interactive as well. Consistency. But there were some disadvantages too of e-training because questions were objective in nature. Problem of extent of security causes trainee anxiety. You sometimes get confused while obtaining training online. Everybody may not be ready for the same, so they could be hesitating. It also requires investment and would require the top management support as well. So students, I hope that you got again a quick overview about the second chapter as well, where you have understood the meaning of EHRM once again, the characteristics of EHRM, how it is different from HRM that you understood. You also understood the different HR activities, namely e-recruitment and its guidelines, e-selection and its process, and e-training with its advantages and limitations. Students, now it brings me to the third and the final chapter that we have to revise for today. That is the third chapter talking all about human resource planning. This is something that we have done quite recently, so I hope that the topics are well aware in your mind already. But still, I would be talking about it once more. So we shall be again going through all the topics that we have studied about human resource planning. Students, I had explained you the meaning of human resource planning, so I hope that you remember those two words, namely manpower supply and manpower demand. So when I was undertaking human resource planning, we had to estimate the manpower demand, that is to say how many employees are actually required in the organization, and the manpower supply as to how many employees are already working in the organization. Thereby a balance had to be established between the two. So this was the definition that we had studied. I also talked about that we neither want a situation of overstaffing, that is to say more staff than requirement, neither do we want a situation of understaffing, that is having less employees than what is actually required. We discussed the different characteristics of human resource planning. So I hope you remember that it was a managerial function to be performed by the management, just like other functions. It was all level activity to be performed at every level. It was beneficial to both the parties, that is to say the organization as well as the employees. It is the top management's responsibility. Their support was required. It is for all the grades of employees as well. Everybody who is employed in the organization, planning is to be done for each and all. It is a modern concept. All the aspects of personnel are included. Even human resource planning was not just limited to recruitment. It also included selection, promotion, training, and even guiding the employees. planning for the long term as well as the short term requirements of human resource. And lastly, with effective human resource planning, even the society at large gets benefited. Students, thereafter, we also understood an important topic on the factors affecting human resource planning. I hope you remember the two factors, that is to say, the internal and the external factors. The internal factors were all those within the organization's control that were affecting human resource planning, and the external factors which were outside the control of the organization but still was affecting the manpower supply and the manpower demand. So, students, we had discussed the internal factors, namely, number one, the top management's policy. So, I had explained you that if the top management's policy is progressive, it is quite good enough, the workforce is satisfied, definitely you could get more work out of less employees also. Number two, the larger the size of business, the more would be the labor requirement, and the smaller the size, the lesser would be the requirement. Number three, financial resources. If you do not have enough financial resources, you cannot go for new recruitments or training because it is also an expensive matter. So one will have to move on with the existing staff itself. And lastly, the technique of production. That is to say, if it is a labor intensive technique, more laborers will be required. And if one goes for capital intensive technique, less labor but more capital will be required. Thereby, we studied about the different external factors that were not within the control of organization but were still affecting the human resource planning. So it were the technological factors, that is to say, when the technology changes, there are changes in the methods of production, organization, distribution. Definitely, it would impact the number of employees and the skill employees that you require for the organization. Number two, the social factors, meaning to say the population, the education, the training, the social mobility of the people, could be the state's policy of employment, the reservation policy of government. All these have an impact also on human resource planning. It would be affected by the age structure of the population, the skilled and the semi skilled or the unskilled laborers which are available in the society, also affected by the economic factors. So we had discussed how the economic conditions and the changes in economy tends to affect the human resource planning. We had talked about the trade cycles, meaning to say the boom and the depression. When there is a boom, there is increase in demand. Definitely you would require more workers for production. But if it is depression going on in the economy, already the demand is going down, production is not required much, then you could even go with less number of employees. And the political and the legal factors, where we had discussed about the three factors basically: the foreign policy of government, that is the policy affecting the imports and exports, the industrial laws, and the monetary policy, and how they affected the labor supply. Students, with this brings me to the end of the chapter where we had discussed a very important question, yet a lengthy answer on human resource planning procedure. We had spent the last 2 to 3 lectures particularly only on this topic, and I hope that at least you had attended these lectures, but still I would just give you a brief overview once again. I hope that you remember the process of human resource planning comprised of 5 stages altogether. First one that you remember, the goal had to be determined, the objectives of an organization had to be determined, and those objectives had to be a detailed list of objectives, not a broad or a generic objective, because based on those detailed goals, one could decide as to how many human resources are required, what kind of skill should be possessed by them, and how many are actually available in the organization. Thereafter, step number two, one had to collect the data about the existing manpower. We had to forecast the manpower demand. We had to estimate the manpower supply. And lastly, we had to take an action plan to bring the demand and the supply at a desirable balance. So we would already discussed the goals. Number two, I hope you remember those four methods under which the data about the existing manpower was to be collected. Because when you have the data about the existing manpower, you at least know whether how many employees are already there in the organization and whether new recruitments are to be made or whether the existing ones have to be developed. So the four were: number one, manpower inventory. So I hope you remember it was the inventory of all the human resources who were working in the organization. That is to say, the inventory of the existing personnel employed in the organization. Number two, the manning tables. This table was showing us the list of jobs and all the human resources working in those respectively. Number three, the skills inventory, showing us the skills and the qualifications possessed by the individuals so that you can know whether they have to be skilled more or whether new recruitments have to be made. And number four, once you have collected the data about the manpower inventory, skills inventory, the same had to be analyzed, the same had to be checked and examined. Thereby, students, the third step was forecasting the manpower demand. That is to say, how many human resources were actually required. So there were some factors which were affecting manpower demand. Number one was the trend of employment. That is to say, the trend of employees, whether leaving the organization or sticking to the organization. Number two, the replacement needs. That is to say, the vacancies created in the organization and thereby understanding who shall replace whom in the near future, because human resources could leave the organization due to a number of reasons. It could be due to the retirement, it could be due to a resignation, dismissal, or even death of the employee. So when they have to be replaced, one has to analyze the same as to when vacancies would be created, when the necessary recruitments have to be made, who shall fill in the vacancies as and when created. Number three, the productivity changes. We had understood that how the labor productivity increases may be due to increased technology and thereby how it also affects the manpower demand. Lastly, when the company goes for expansion and development, definitely it will increase the manpower demand. Thereby, we also studied the methods of demand forecasting. I hope you remember the two methods, namely the workload analysis and the workforce analysis. You could go with the method once again, where it explains you as to how many laborers are required to produce a given unit of output. We had understood as to the number of components to be manufactured in a month, thereby how many workers were required to produce that many units in a particular department. So for example, 18,000 components are to be produced, and if to produce one component, 0.10 man hours were needed, then 1800 man hours will be needed, and thereby 10 employees will be needed by the department, because one employee can work for 180 hours in a month. Second being the workforce analysis, which was used for the long-term projections. It was also affected by two factors, namely absenteeism, that is the rate of employees remaining absent in the organization, and labor turnover, that is the rate at which employees leave the organization. The fourth step was estimating the manpower supply. I hope you remember the supply was to be estimated through the internal sources and the external sources. While understanding the internal sources, one has to analyze the retention, that is the tendency of the employees to leave the organization, stability index, that is the tendency of employees to stay in the organization for a longer period of time, and analysis of internal movement, that is to say movement of individuals within an organization, could be due to transfers, could be due to promotions, demotions. And lastly, it could also be done through the external sources of labor if the internal sources are inadequate. Students, it brings me to the last step of the procedure, that once you have determined the demand, you have estimated the supply, you now need to take measures of creating a balance between the demand and supply. So we had understood the four elements of the final plan, and I told you how it should create a balance between both the labor requirements and the financial capabilities as well. It should not surpass the budgetary requirements of the organization. Lastly, we had discussed the different advantages of human resource planning. We could just go through them once more. It would help you surpass the future demand, increasing the morale, efficiency of the laborers, developing their skills. Because you do not undergo overstaffing or understaffing, it would also control the labor cost, help you implement the long term plans, and bringing a balance between the demand and supply. We also understood the limitations of human resource planning. Because it is planning and because it is done for future which may be uncertain, estimates are not always accurate. You could have lack of information about vacancies. So if the planning is based on inadequate data, inadequate information, again, it would lead to failure. It requires support of top management. If not provided, would result to a limitation. And lastly, it is also sometimes based on unreliable data that could not be trusted, and thus the planning becomes inaccurate. So students, with this, it brings me to the end of all the three chapters that we have studied by far. We have discussed and revised in brief all the different concepts, starting from the first chapter, human resource management, second chapter, electronic human resource management, and the third chapter, that is human resource planning. I hope that the lecture was beneficial to you to understand the topics at large once again. I hope that your doubts or any queries might have been resolved with this. In case you still have any doubts, feel free to ask them in the Google Classroom so that I can answer them at the earliest. With this, I end up the today's lecture, and the focus for the next lecture shall be to move ahead with the fourth chapter, understanding new topics on career planning and executive development. Thank you so much for the day, students. See you soon in the next lecture. Keep reading. The notes have already been provided to you. You would read the notes to better understand the concepts, and when you read, you would also be able to understand and raise doubts if any. So we would be meeting soon in the next lecture. Thank you so much for the day, students, and until then, happy learning.